Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or simply hoping to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psychreg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how many people will likely remain in mediocrity.
That's right.
One
of my college teachers said one time, consistency is the sign of mediocrity.
Oh.
Didn't know what he meant until I read this article.
Yeah. It's a very nice article written in Medium, and it's by Anthony Moore. Yeah. And it's about mediocrity. And there are a number of things that he says in here that I just think are fantastic. But basically, the idea is that most of us most of us shoot for just being better than the next guy.
Right. And we for some reason, we seem to be drawn to the safety and the security of, he calls it of the crowd, but of people we know. Mm-hmm. And we tend to think the way they do and act the way they do and aspire to the things that they aspire to. And frequently, it's like, I want 2 cars, or I want a small boat, or I want this, or because that's what everybody else around me has. You tend to want the things that people you associate with have, okay? And what he's saying is that this is a sign of mediocrity because that's where 99% of the people live.
Right.
They live in this sort of mediocre world, pursuing the same things, trying to get ahead, and what did you just said, trying to outdo the other, outscore, outdo, outperform.
Yeah. There are 2 lines at the beginning of this article, and the first one is a quote from Tim Ferriss, and he says, "It's lonely at the top. 99% of people are convinced they are incapable of achieving great things, so they aim for mediocre."
Right.
But the other thing he says is that most people. He says much of the thinking around us is small-minded. Mm-hmm. Most people are overly concerned with beating the other guy, usually through manipulation and politics. As a result, they're left fighting for scraps with the other 99%.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so he promotes the idea of, really getting out there, really shooting for, and that whole idea of, shoot for the stars, because then you may at least land on the moon. So you really have to go big. And, the reason that we, it kind of tying in from what we talked about yesterday, maybe some of the reasons that we don't is because of fear.
Right.
But, we're not shooting big enough.
Right. One is fear. The other is we want to stay in this mediocre zone. I mean, that's, and I think he's right in that's what we're really aspiring to, is to be mediocre, to be like everybody else. Okay? And he calls that mediocre. If you want to become outstanding, it's going to require a different method, different ideas.
Yeah, you're going to have to push yourself a little bit farther.
Right.
And of course he has different things that he thinks or proposes as reasons for why we do this, and part of it is that we don't want to risk failure.
That's right. As we talked about yesterday, this whole notion of failure. And that is a great quote.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a quote by Thomas Watson, and it says, "Would you like me to give you a formula for success? It's quite simple, really. Double your rate of failure."
I love that. Double your rate of failure.
Yeah. Yeah, so and it goes on, but it talks about, we think that the opposite of success is failure.
Right.
But failure is really what gets us to success. Right. It really paves the path to success.
That's right, because you're going to learn from your failure what didn't work, and then you're going to be one step closer to success. So if you fail, okay, now that didn't work, so you're one step closer to success.
Yeah.
And I love this notion of double your failure rate. If you want to succeed, double your failure rate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we did a podcast long ago, months ago now, where we talked about success. What do people mean by happiness, or what do they mean by success? Success is not accomplishing. Success is pursuing. It's you're always striving for more. And it's that striving and accomplishing that gives you the feeling of success or the feeling of happiness.
Yeah. The next thing he kind of talks about again, is something that I really like, because I remember when I was first started coaching with the guy that I coach with now, and he's a physician, and we were talking one day with our team, and we were talking about studying, and, because we still study for work. You study for work. He studies for work, and the players were like, "What? What are you talking about studying? You're done with school.
Right.
Why do you keep studying?" He talks about here, the mediocre majority doesn't value learning.
Correct.
And so we stopped learning. We stopped reading. We stopped studying. We stopped understanding things. Yep. We feel very content in the small world in which we live, and those that settle for mediocrity, they don't push themselves to learn things that they've never studied before.
That's right, and that's the other side of success is through your and failure is that through your failures you learn.
Right.
Okay, but if you're not pushing, if you're not extending yourself, and risking failure, how do you learn new things?
Right.
You learn new things by trying new things.
Yeah.
And as we discussed yesterday, at first you're going to stink at it.
Yeah.
At first you're not going to be very good, but you will get better.
Yeah. He has another quote here, and he says, repetition can be boring or tedious, which is why so few people ever master anything.
That's right.
You have to do things over and over again to master them. And you that's what learning is reading about the same things and learning about the same things, and then moving on and reading and learning about something else and continuing to expand that understanding.
Yep.
We talked before about there isn't a subject matter that you should ever feel as though you know everything you can know about it.
Right.
There is no subject matter that I can think of that you would ever reach that point. So just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah. The next one is that winners act like winners before they become a winner.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's an attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an attitude.
And I think that one of the issues, and this goes with the guy that was talking about yesterday, that we were talking about yesterday, when he was kind of highly critical of self-help books. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is one of those areas where I think that the criticism is due, but it's also kind of messing things up in other ways. So, very commonly in self-help books, it'll say things like "fake it till you make it,"
Right.
And people talk of that very critically. The idea, fake it till you make it. Right. Well, you're still faking it. That kind of thing. Well, the yes, it's true that you should fake it till you make it, and yes, it's true that faking it till you make it is faking it. But here's the difference, and I think that this is the difference that he's talking about here. Fake it till you make it is the behavioral stuff, but the mental stuff is that you've made it.
Right.
You're not. Yes, you're carrying yourself differently. Yes, you're talking about yourself differently. Yes, you're presenting yourself as a winner even before you've become a winner. But the part that everybody tends to miss is that you have to have the mentality of the winner before you become the winner.
Right.
And that's the big disconnect, I think. We don't do that.
Right. And that's that quote, winners act like winners before they win. It's from Bill Walsh, who was the famous basketball coach at USC. But he's saying you become a winner by acting like and thinking like a winner.
Right.
It's not the reverse.
Right.
You have to think like one and act like one in order to become one.
Right. Yeah. So it's not, yes, fake it till you make it has its flaws. But when you take fake it till you make it and you couple that with the mentality of having made it, that's what's going to make the difference. Right. Maybe one day we should do a whole podcast just on that, because it is such an important point. But again, I think that's where, again, consistent with what we talked about yesterday, that's where the real issues of the self-help books, where those issues really lie, is that it all gets so watered down to where it's just this one little quote, fake it till you make it. And it's like, okay, well, that big deal.
Right. Then what?
But it doesn't include the real mentality that really has to go into it. And that's where there's problems. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. The last thing that he talks about here is that you seek money and titles, not experience and transformation. How do you define success?
Right.
And that's what it comes back to. You know, do you define success as a monetary figure or a title or a label, or do you define success as, you know, the knowledge and the understanding and the achievement of learning
and the change that it puts you through, and
yes,
what it does to you, becoming becoming more competent, becoming better.
Yeah. And so the quote he has here is from William Irving that says, you know, people are unhappy in large part because they are confused about what is valuable.
Right. That's
you know,
right.
we think of money and titles and all that stuff as being what's valuable, and you know, that's not what's valuable.
Right.
What's valuable is the knowledge and understanding and change, personal change that you go through in this process.
The transformation that occurs.
Yeah. So when we think about mediocrity, you know, the idea that, you know, we're just going for what is typical.
Right.
You know, we just want to be better than the next person. So if our neighbor gets something, we just want to be just a smidge better than that.
At least as good or a little bit better.
Right. But if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to be what you can be.
Right. That's right.
You have to shoot higher than that.
Right. And he has the one line that I'm going to live by is, don't seek praise, seek criticism.
Right.
Because if you're failing, you're going to get some criticism.
Right.
But failing teaches. Success doesn't. If everybody always likes you, you're not going to gain anything by everybody always liking you. That, first of all, probably not going to happen. That everybody
Not likely.
will like you. You're always, all of us have our detractors. But the other thing is, if you're always pushing and failing, you're also going to be attracting criticism.
Right.
Okay. Which is okay. You can live with criticism, and that's all right. You and I have written and submitted things for publication, most of which get rejected.
Right.
But that's true for most writers. Most of what we write gets rejected.
Right.
But it's in getting rejected that you learn how to fix it and how to make it better.
Right.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So the only way to succeed is don't submit it. The only way to always be successful or never to fail is never to submit.
Exactly. Exactly. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid. Thanks for sharing this episode of the Mental Breakdown and Psychreg podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you will find all of our previous podcasts and much more. We would be honored if you would become a patron through patreon.com, where any donation you can manage will go to the development and creation of more content. Just visit patreon.com/thementalbreakdown for more information. Thanks again for listening. Have an awesome day, and we look forward to being back in your feed tomorrow morning.